Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Harbours Advisory Committee today, Wednesday, the 3rd of December. I must apologise for this late start to the meeting. We've had a few technical hitches, which have now been sorted out, and we can proceed with the meeting. For the benefit of the public, I am Councillor Rob Hughes, Chair of the committee, and Vice Chair for the meeting is Councillor Sarah Williams. The meeting is being live streamed, and the recording will also be available to view on the website after the meeting. Can I remind everyone that when you are speaking, please speak directly into the microphone and for members to introduce themselves when they first speak. For information, supporting officers involved in the meeting include Ed Carter, Harbours Manager, James Radcliffe, Bridport and Lyme Regis Harbour Master, Matthew Penny, Service Manager, FCERM, Claire Connolly, Harbour Business Manager, Laura Altry, Senior Lawyer, Kevin Evans, Senior Accountant, Joshua Kennedy, Democratic Services Officer, and Lewis Wicks, Democratic Services Officer. Josh, number one on the agenda is, do we have any apologies, please?
Yes, so we've had apologies this morning from councillors Mike Baker and Sally Holland. Sally Holland is joining us online.
Thanks very much, Josh. Number two, minutes of the Harbours Advisory Committee, to confirm the minutes of the meeting of the Harbours Advisory Committee on the 17th of September. Lee.
Yeah, good morning, Lee Hardy, independent member. At the last meeting that was minuted here, there was an item raised about how we should be dealing with reports from the designated person. That appears not to have been captured in the minutes, and indeed there was an agreement to come back with an answer to the question that was raised. It's just not in the minutes.
Thank you very much, Lee. Josh, as that's missing, what I'd like to do is delay signing the minutes until it's been added, and then I'll sign the minutes off, and we'll send a copy to Lee to make sure he's happy with that. Thank you. Can you send it to everybody? I'll send it to everybody. And so that's that. Item 3 on the agenda is declarations of... Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, Mark Roberts.
Yes, again on the minutes. I noticed that everyone else is credited with a Christian name, but I'm just M, and I just wonder if you could possibly add my name as well.
We'll add in the other letters, the ARK. Declarations of interest. Does any member, if they have any declarations of interest that they wish to make? Mr. Roberts.
Yes, I have a mooring at West Bay.
Yes, Richard.
Yeah, just for the record, I no longer hold a mooring at Weymouth, but having recorded it for all previous meetings, I thought I'd better make that clear. So no declaration of interest from me today.
Have you sold your vessel? I hope you got a good price. Okay, no other matters of interest anyone wants to declare? No. Moving on. Item 4 on the agenda is public participation. There are no public questions. Is that still correct, Josh? Thank you very much. Chair's report, item 5. Well, firstly, as Chair, I'd like to thank the Vice Chair, Councillor Sarah Williams, for chairing the last meeting in September during my absence. It was my wife's 65th birthday, and I'd promised to take her away, and I would have not be here either today if I hadn't done so. So apologies for that, and thank you, Sarah. Secondly, I'd also like to thank all who attended the recent working group meeting held at the Pavilion in Weymouth to discuss the economic review for all of our harbours. Thanks to Ed Carter and our Harbours Manager for arranging it all. Moving on, it was good to attend the harbour consultative groups held over the past couple of months. Lyme Regis, Bridport and Weymouth, and to congratulate Sally Holman as the new chair of the Lyme Regis group back in October. More recently, on the 19th of November, I, along with other members of the Council and officers, attended the 30 years celebration of Dorset Coast Forum, held at the RNLI headquarters in Poole, with many excellent talks and presentations about the management and the work that is done by so many to protect and conserve our Dorset coastline and fish stocks. And as we come towards the end of this year, because it is December, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our teams working within our Dorset harbours, keeping them a safe place of refuge for all who have used them throughout the past year. Not forgetting Matt and his team within the FCERM for the work that they do, protecting our coastline and harbour walls. And finally, to all who make up the Harbours Advisory Committee, I say thanks and wish you all a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. I know we've still got some paperwork to do, but I wanted to say that now and get that out of the way. Thank you. Item 6 on the agenda, Harbour Consultative Group minutes to receive the meetings of the Harbour Consultative Group meeting from Bridport, West Bay, and I believe Emma Bourne is here and she's going to present. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am chair of Bridport Harbour Consultative Group. You've all had our minutes. Just wanted to pull out a couple of things. One, we had an informal survey organised by the Leisurecraft rep, and we got some very good results from that. Quite a high return. I think roughly 25%, and it highlighted a couple of issues, but I should say that we had a very, very high rating for the staff, which is always good. So they work very hard behind the scenes and they're front and centre. So that was good. But we think we're probably going to keep that going. And it's a very good way of getting into the harbour users and getting some feedback. And we also had which I'm sure all the other harbour groups had as well, a fairly sobering presentation from the Home Office about smuggling of people, guns, drugs. And we're looking at ways of integrating that properly into our Harbour Watch and revamping Harbour Watch and any of the other harbours. If they've got any good ideas, it might be good to do a bit of blue sky thinking on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. Next we have Lyme Regis, and I believe we have Nick Marks to present online for us today. Are you there, Nick, please?
I am, Chairman. Good morning. Just to clarify, I'm the RNLI rep on the HCG. As you alluded to, our new chairman is Sally Holman, who took over from me as chairman a couple of months ago. Unfortunately, for medical reasons, she can't make it today and has asked me to present the minutes on her behalf, which I will now do. First of all, pleased to welcome you, Chairman, to our HCG in October. As you recall, we had routine business, including updates from Dorset Police and references to the HRO revision, the ongoing problem of dog fouling on the fish landing quay and vessels speeding, and plans for the dredging. But the focus of this meeting was the COB, and Matt Penny gave an excellent presentation on issues surrounding the urgent repairs to the COB and the challenges faced to bring phase 5 of the Environmental Protection Scheme to fruition. And this presentation was welcomed by HCG members and prompted considerable discussion. Most of it is recorded in our minutes. Now, as been previously stated at this HAC meeting, this parlour state of the COB is of huge concern to Lyme Regis. Now, on the 27th of November, Dorset Coast Forum held a public engagement event in Lyme Regis on the very subject of the COB. Over 200 people attended this event and were able to view Dorset Council's proposals for Phase 5 and to ask questions of the council specialists. Such an event has long been sought by our HCG, and our thanks go to Dorset Coast Forum for organising the event. and most particularly to Matt Penny for fielding many questions over a total of 6 hours. I think he deserves a bonus for that. We now look forward to seeing the urgent cob repairs being completed early in the new year, and for steady progress on the phase 5 stabilisation project. And finally, returning to the HCG meeting itself, we received reports from the various organisations who use the harbour. I do not intend to go through these now, as I've probably spoken long enough, and they are all contained within the minutes. And that completes my report, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Nick. That was a really good report. We move on now to Tim Day from the Weymouth Consultative Group.
Thank you, Chairman. It was good at our meeting that we saw Adrian Best, Dorset Marine Police, attended, and Marion Fisher, who is the parking enforcement officer, also attended, and she was very useful clearing up or helping us understand some of the questions over parking around the harbour. Boat folk who used to be the people that ran Weymouth Marina, they've now been taken over by Premier Marinas, which reflects what's happened in Portland as well. There was there were various discussions over the moorings, council moorings, and the harbour master took those on board. The failure or the bad markers in August over seawater quality on Weymouth Main Beach, the harbour master had obtained the results from the tests, and there was concern, local concern. This was due to stuff coming down the harbour from yachts and boats moored in the harbour. It turns out that the main marker turns out to be of the winged variety, that either being herring gulls or the crows that invest on the beach. And so the solution would seem to be more on the two-legged people we get at Weymouth, that is the tourists and the locals, and the disposal of rubbish on the, I would suggest, I don't know, I would suggest that is the main thing that we need to be looking at, so we don't get these concentrations of seabirds and crows, especially around the bank holiday. The charter boat owners and the fishermen all reported things had been going quite smoothly, and it had been quite a reasonable season until September, when the weather abruptly changed and everything went much quieter. The harbour traders have reported they've benefited from the cruise ships arriving later in the year, and they expect to also benefit from the seafood festival returning next year and being on the harbour side rather than on the peninsula. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Tim. Excuse me, still recovering from last week's cold. Thank you, Tim. Moving on to item 7 this morning, it's provision of designated person services, and Ed Carter is to present. Thank you very much, Ed.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. Ed Carter, Dorset Council Harbours Manager and Weymouth Harbour Master. So the first report in front of members today is to update the Duty Holder and Harbours Advisory Committee on the continued provision of designated person services by ABP Mayor for Dorset Council Harbours. There is a recommendation in front of you today that the Duty Holder and Harbours Advisory Committee note the continued provision of designated person services by ABP Mayor for the next 3 years. I believe that the previous, the last time a designated person for the Harbours was sought was back when the Harbours Committee, before the Harbours was a Harbour Advisory Committee and before I arrived. So my apologies if I possibly misunderstood the process with this. Certainly, as far as I'm concerned, we think that the ABP Mayor, going with ABP for the next 3 years, James, of course, Hannon, has only done one audit at each harbour over the last 3 years. We would very much like James to continue to do a second audit at each harbour, at which point, at the end of that 6-year cycle, we will then go out and test the market and, of course, bring recommendations forward to the committee. The reporter, I believe, makes the case. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed. Mark Roberts, I can see you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. I think if we check back, actually, that the Harbour Committee was advisory when we did decide to switch from our previous organisation that had provided the designated person. I'm delighted that we are continuing with APB MER, but I did raise the point with the Harbour Master that I felt that the committee shouldn't be just being advised that this has happened, but I felt that the committee should be recommending to the duty holder that this is the way forward, because otherwise the committee really has had no say in this, and I feel it's something that gives more protection to both the Harbour Master and to the designated person, that the committee has reviewed and approved this recommendation to advise the duty holder to continue, rather than just asking people to note that it has happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Ed, would you like to come back?
No, thank you. Mark Roberts is absolutely correct. And again, my apologies to members if I've misunderstood the process here. I believe my report outlines everything very clearly. And of course, the decision does rest with members today to either agree or not agree with the recommendation as they should see fit. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other comments that they wish to add at this time? So then we need to make a decision to move forward, but to inform the duty holder first of any decisions that we are making. I believe that is the correct way to move forward on this. We need to advise the duty holder, from what Mark Roberts is telling me.
I think my point was the process has already been decided, and previously the committee would have been presented with a report to make that advice. This is that our only recommendation is that we note a decision has been made, and it's not in this that the committee is advising the duty holder at all. We're both being asked to note at the same point of a decision that has been made. And my point was that process probably should come to the committee for its approval and then to advise the duty holder of our decision.
Could I ask Laura if she has any comments around this, please, as legal representative? Thank you, Laura.
Chair, I think you can probably deal with the recommendation that you've got in front of you. We'll consider whether that is appropriate or not outside of this meeting. If we find that it isn't, we can bring back another report next time for a decision if that is necessary.
Thank you very much, Laura. Okay, so we will move forward then and accept what we have in front of us for now and confirm everything through legal, and if there's an issue with anything, we will come back on this to the next meeting. Moving on, we have item 8, the designated person, PMSC annual update, and that's James Hannon, who is here with us this time to give us his verbal update, please, James. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. James Hannon. Just to give you a bit of an update on the code, I think we have a presentation that should be on the screen. Yeah, move on to the next slide, please. So just an update on who I am. I am an associate. I work for ABP MER consultancy. I am a port and marine safety and regulatory specialist, and I'm an experienced designated person under the PMSC for Peel Ports Group, Exeter Port Authority, Dorset Councils, yourselves, Mid Suffolk Council, and Torbay Council. So as you can see, I'm primarily, or majority of my clients are actually municipal ports. Previously, I was the head of ports and VTS policy for the Maritime Coast Guard Agency and DFT. I led the compliance for Solent Gateway, and I was the harbour master at London Gateway. I was the duty harbour master at Falmouth, and I cut my teeth as a Coast Guard on Leon Solent, which was the busiest one in the country at the time. But yeah, baptism of fire. Next slide, please. The updates from myself, the code, which I will go into next, it's updates, but the code does set the UK national standard for every aspect of port marine safety. The Maritime and Coast Guard Agency do require a 3-yearly port compliance statement, and I'll come on to that in a little while. Designated person is an independent function, and the designated person does report directly to the duty holder. And as the designated person, my role is to test the effectiveness of the marine safety management system across the ports. And this assurance process allows me to update the duty holder, allowing them to write to the MCA during the compliance exercise. Next slide, please. So the current additions, on the 15th of April this year, the Port Marine Safety Code was updated to the Port Marine Facility Safety Code, still PMSC for short, still catches me out. And the Guide to Good Practice, which is the accompanying document, was updated and issued at the same time. The guide and the code are reviewed twice a year, January and in July, and any updates to the Guide to Good Practice are installed as a dynamic operation. However, the code is fixed for 5 years. Next slide, please. The code has been set out into 10 chapters. I don't know if anybody remembers the previous iteration of the code, which was set out into previous into 4 chapters, and there was a 10-point checklist. The 10-point checklist was made for the duty holder to enable them to check that they are meeting compliance with the code. So it was deemed that the best way to move forward was to actually make the code reflect the checklist, and therefore it was easier for the duty holder to ensure that they were meeting compliance. This also follows the same process that the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency use when they undertake a health check, and it is also the process that I use to undertake an audit. So as you can see there's 10 points. The only one that's really changed was previously the section 10 on the checklist was aids to navigation. Conservancy duties were spread out throughout the code and were quite hard to pick out, so it was decided that section 10 would be changed to conservancy duties. Next slide, please. So the MCA have issued a MIN, a Marine Information Notice. This is MIN 641. This is relating to the compliance exercise and gives the operational window for the compliance exercise to be undertaken. The next round of compliance statements are due to be handed into the MCA between the 1st of January and the 31st of March next year. So there is a 3-month window for submission of compliance. The statement is actually to be made against your compliance with the code across the 3 ports. However, if there is any areas that are deemed to be non-compliant, which there isn't, the MCA would expect you to make a notification of the area of non-conformity or non-compliance and what you are doing to put this right in the time period which would be allocated by yourselves, as it is a voluntary code and not statutory. Next slide, please. The latest or last audit that was undertaken by myself was undertaken in March 2025. As you can see, that is 1 month prior to the release of the new Port Marine Safety Code. Fortunately, I'd had a draft copy of the code, and we were able to assess the port against the requirements under the new code as best they were at that time. There was 1 or 2 minor changes, but nothing significant. The outcome of the audit was it was found that it was to be compliant with the requirements of the code. 3 areas of best practice were identified. 15 opportunities for improvement were noted. And the other activities for the year is regular update meetings with the Harbour Masters and a DP quarterly news circulation, including any industry guidance has been provided. Next slide, please. The areas of best practice, I was pleased to say that the provision of the aids to navigation were recognised as an area of best practice with 100% availability statistic across all categories. Hydrographic survey standard is a very high standard, and this has also been recognised as an area of best practice with an ongoing regime of surveys and promulgation of the information. The Council has a consistent and measurable approach to marine safety. It's also been noted over my last 3 years in the position. Next slide, please. The 15 improvement opportunities were highlighted within the audit. I've provided just a flavour of what was picked up. So these are not non-compliances or non-conformities, these are observations. The risk assessments had been reviewed. However, the risk register was not updated for some time. So the last update was noted to be back in August 2022. The hazard ranking section in 4.7 of the SMS was there, but it had no accompanying risk register, which I believe has been identified and corrected now. Dynamic risk assessment process applied to Lyme Regis Harbour. There is a dynamic risk assessment system in place. However, this is not captured within the Marine Safety Management System. And there was no training policy for the marine staff available at the time of the audit. And the code expects that the organisation will have a training policy in place which explains how the qualifications of the marine staff are maintained and revalidated. Next slide, please. So traffic light systems are used in all my audits for ease to the duty holder to show where they're performing against the code. As you can see there, no non-conformities, 15 areas were identified for improvement or opportunities for improvement, and 57 sections of the audited areas were completely compliant with the requirements of the Port Marine Safety Code, or the Port Marine and Facilities Safety Code as it now is. Next slide, please. So moving forward the next 3 years, it's a 3-yearly cycle, and each port is done in turn, starting at West Bay, as it was on the previous audits. Weymouth follows the following year, and the final year will be Lyme Regis, which will lead up to the next round of compliance exercise with the Maritime Coast Guard Agency. Next slide, please. And that completes my presentation. Thank you, Chair. Happy.
Thank you very much, James, for that concise report. Excellent. Thank you for all the work you do. Anybody, any questions before we move on? Lee Hardy.
Yeah, thanks for the report. All very clear. 2 very small questions, if I may, please. You mentioned in the slides you're doing regular updates with the team. Is that in person or is that electronically? Essentially, the question is, how often do you get out on the ground in the ports? And a very quick question, if I can, as well, to follow that on. You listed some great best practice areas. How do you follow those up?
Thank you. Yes, so the meetings are actually undertaken online on Teams. They're monthly. This is actually an addition that we brought in ourselves. There is no contractual requirement for me to actually update with the Harbour Masters, but it was deemed when I took the contract that it would be best if we had a monthly update. Not for any other reason than it's just best to have an understanding of what is actually going on and get a feel of how the harbours are running. With regards to the best practice, The best practice areas have been highlighted purely on I suppose the achievements of the port. The areas that which I've highlighted there stand head and shoulders above many other ports within the area, especially certainly within municipal ports. To have 100% navigational mark, availability is outstanding. This is stuff that I do actually pass on. I have very recently to another organisation stated that you are setting pretty much the gold standard for how a municipal port operates their port function. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Lee, for your question. Mark, please.
Yes, thank you. It's wonderful to know that Dorset Council is offering best practice as a municipal port owner. The new guide, there was a question for the chair and officers, I think. If it's not available online, perhaps all committee members should have a copy of the guide, not necessarily the full one, but if it's available online, a link to that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, Chair. Go.
Yep. So, yes, the code and the guide to good practice are both available on .gov.uk. The code, as I say, we remain static for 5 years. Guide to good practice is updated probably not as dynamically as they would say that it's going to be, but almost certainly annually. I'd just like to state that there is training available through the British Ports Association, which is online training. It's a 2-hour training course on the update of the code and the requirements under the duty holder. So it might be worth enrolling in on the training.
Thank you very much, James. And Ed, you have something to say? Then I'll come back.
Sorry, Chairman, may I come back on? I think it would be good for all members to do that annually, rather than, I know there is a requirement over a period, but I think it was a 3-year one, but I think an annual for that 2 hours would be excellent for all of us members of the committee and the duty holder.
Thank you, Mark. Ed.
Yes, thank you very much. As raised there by James, thank you. That's already on my to-do list for the new year, is to highlight training to members on the new code for next year. And yes, thank you, Mark. More than happy to make that an annual exercise if members should wish it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, I'm happy to do it annually. I'm sure everybody else is. If there's no more questions, we will move on to Item 9, which is Harbour Master updates, starting with Bridport, West Bay, and Lyme Regis, presented by James Radcliffe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, hang on. So starting with the stats for the harbours, Bridport stats remain comparable to this time last year on all services. Lyme Regis has seen an increase in season ticket purchases, but remain comparable to last year on all other services. The mooring occupancy for Bridport on private moorings is 86% and 61% for commercial moorings. And for Lyme Regis, it's 84% for private and 80% for commercial moorings. Following a recent reallocation of moorings at the harbours, we've been able to create space for some larger vessels, and we've returned to the waiting list, and over 20 mooring offers have been issued this week in preparation for next season, and we're already receiving positive responses from new boat owners. Staff training, the MCA oil spill 4P refresher course was completed this year, and we're still planning to do the Beach Masters course. As we've heard, both consultative groups have both met in October and November, and we welcome Sally Holm as the new chair at Lyme Regis. Border Force attended the Bridport meeting with the intentions to come along to all future meetings at both harbours. And this means the groups will have now representations from external bodies, including Marine Police, Neighbourhood Policing, and the Border Force. The harbour revision order is changed slightly since writing the report, and Ed's going to update us on that within his report later. Harbour Works, timber piling started on schedule for the 3rd of November. As you see in the picture there, the area completed this year. All works were done to schedule, and we're now planning for the next phase in the winter of 2026. Water injection dredging commenced on the 10th of November. These trials went ahead for 8 tides at Bridport, and due to weather, we're still waiting to get to Lyme to do the trials down there. Survey results from the water injection were received late last night, and initial analysis indicates that the harbour bed levels have changed. However, at this stage, I cannot confirm whether the trials have been successful. Further review is required before we can draw any conclusions. Our aids to navigation were inspected back in September, and everything was found to be in good order, with no matters arising which require any further attention. Both harbours have had good events this year, and Bridport, the West Bay Days Christmas tree event went ahead last Sunday. It was a well-attended event, and both harbours have their, Bridport has their Boxing Day swim to look forward to, and Lyme Regis with their New Year's Day swim. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, James. The next report, we have a question from Richard.
Yeah, James, at the last meeting, I suggested we could do more to promote the kind of much improved incident action reporting system. I know you undertook to put that in the newsletter. Just in my experience, these things need continual reinforcement. So can I perhaps suggest we just take that effort forward, perhaps a presentation at the consultative groups, just to, because it's a relatively new system online. It's working really well, but I think that continual education of the kind of harbour users would really give us a lot of benefit. So could I just recommend we take that forward and that continual promotion of that system? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard, for your question. Moving on to the Weymouth Harbour report, and Ed Carter presenting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. After the last report I gave at the previous meeting, I was reliably informed that I think I rushed through the report quite quickly, so I'm going to try and slow things down a little bit today. I've got some bullet points to follow, so I'm willing to answer questions, of course. So our marina occupancy in Weymouth peaked at 92.5% in September, which was slightly ahead of last year. We have seen a drop in October occupancy, a little bit sharper than usual, although still following the same annual pattern. We are starting to see a trend towards 6-month berths for smaller vessels. We do collect data on whether the customers taking 6 months berths are returning customers, whether they're new customers. We're going to be doing a little bit of analysis on that early next year, just to ensure that we're getting, like I say, a good return number as well as new customers if people are taking up shorter term berthing agreements. We've still got lots of demand for berths in the 12-metre and above area, and we're holding a waiting list in that section. Commercial berths, no change. They're still almost fully let with a couple of vacancies due to access, for example, the midstream pontoon, or size limitations at the berth. And we've got some quite large vessels, charter vessels predominantly, waiting to take up a berth with us that don't fit in the couple of berths we've got on the commercial arm. For our harbour statistics, whilst we'll go into a little bit more, of course, detail into the revenue in the report a bit later on, overall, our visiting leisure craft revenue was down 3.6% on year. Whilst we've had some extremely busy periods over the summer, we've also had some quite protracted periods of low activity, in particular in between the school holidays. It was noticeable, for example, in June, in between the May bank holiday or half-term period and the August summer holiday. We did see quite a few weeks in June where actually very little was going on. A consequence of the good, settled and calm weather this year has been a reflection of our slipway and PwC permit income, which was up 10.5% on last year. We've also seen a very slight uplift on the number of bridge lifts and the number of vessels transiting through the bridge, indicating a higher use of the vessels within the marina areas. Non-resident fishing vessel visits, 90, which is down 28% on the comparable period for last year. As I reported on the last meeting, we have seen a particular drop over August of one fishing vessel that does visit us very regularly and certainly very busy in the early part of the year. Come August, it's dropped off considerably. As has been commented earlier, the summer did come to a very abrupt end in late August, with the weather changing almost overnight from settled hot and sunny to windier and wetter conditions. As a consequence, we saw 25% fewer visiting vessel nights and 12% less income in September alone. On the other side of that, we have seen an increase in visits of charity vessels, including sea cadets, which contributed a good portion of income for our visiting vessel revenue. Our commercial berthing activity is mixed. Our annual berthing occupancy dipped very slightly, but temporary berthing and ancillary services have boosted revenue within the port area. On staffing, Karen Womack, one of our assistant harbour masters, resigned her post at the end of the summer to pursue new opportunities. We're currently the recruitment will be opening very shortly in the next couple of weeks prior to Christmas, with that then closing in January and looking to recruit to the post before the season. Leslie Clark has retired as moorings officer, and again her replacement is planned in early 2026. One of the predominant reasons that we have multiple moorings officers that work in our reception and we have 2 assistant harbour masters is, of course, the harbour office is open 7 days a week throughout the year, frequently open from 7:30 in the morning until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening during the summer. And as a 7-day week, it's too much for one person to achieve. Hence, we have 2 assistant harbour masters working opposing rotas, and we have, of course, multiple berthing officers and moorings officers working rolling rotas to ensure that our staffing remains consistent. Karen and Leslie will, of course, both be very much missed, and we thank them both for their very hard work and dedication to Weymouth Harbour and, of course, Dorset Council over the last few years. Some training this year has included courses on oil spill refresher, oxy-fuel safety for the use of propane and oxygen cutting gases, and also day skipper theory. We have recorded 23, at the time of writing this report, we'd recorded 23 incidents since the last meeting, including a couple of very minor diesel spills, one which I will talk about more in a second, very minor personal accidents, and a report of swimmers near fishing gear in Weymouth Bay. On to oil spills. As I reported in a meeting earlier in the year, we had very early in January, we had a discharge of oily bilge water, which led to a Tier 1 oil spill contingency response within the harbour. Over the summer, we have seen relatively regular, probably not quite the word for it, but minor diesel spills near the commercial road pontoons. In all of the instances, we were unable to identify a particular source, and of course, without a source, it makes it very difficult in a wide area to deploy any resources. And so we've kept an eye on it, and we have communicated with berth holders over the summer about the importance of maintaining their vessels and also contacting us should an accidental spill occur, as we are in a very good place to attend and to help out. Towards the end of the summer season, we did actually finally identify a vessel that it would appear was having issues, certainly on when an engine was being cold started early in the morning. That vessel has subsequently actually gone from the harbour and is having a lot of maintenance done on the engine over the winter period. Since writing this report, on Tuesday, the 18th of November, we actually had 2 Tier 1 spills occurring on the same day in Weymouth Harbour. Both required the activation of our oil spill contingency plan, notification of organisations such as the Environment Agency, the MMO, and of course the MCA, and deployment of Tier 1 resources in both instances. One was the spill of diesel from the bilge of a vessel that was receiving bunkers from a shoreside tanker. As we understand it, the person on the boat that received the fuel nozzle from the fueling person on shore, instead of putting the fueling nozzle into the hole for fuel, they actually put it into a rod holder which was next to it, and the fuel went straight into the bilge, and from there the automatic bilge pumps activated and pumped diesel straight over the side. The systems were all completely isolated, and our staff moved very quickly to boom the vessel in its entirety to prevent further spill of diesel into the harbour, and lots of sorbent resources were provided to help soak up the diesel that was inside the vessel, and the vessel wasn't allowed to move until we were satisfied that everything had been cleared up. The second spill was from our new fuel pontoon, which, as some members are aware, as I've spoken about this as it happened, the fuel pontoon systems were having their final testing on the fitting of the payment machine. At the moment of the systems being primed, it became apparent that underneath the water, where a pipe was running underneath the pontoon, at some point this pipe had failed and diesel came out of the pipe and into the water. Again, our Tier 1 resources were deployed, and we actually did a double ring boom of Tier 1 resources all around the pontoon and contained the spill very effectively. And I'd like to thank the staff at Weymouth for their very quick response and the activation of our oil spill contingency plan. The fuel pontoon continues to be inactive, shall we say, as of course we now have to take steps to rectify the failure and to move forward from there. I can only report again to members my continued frustration. This fuel pontoon does seem to be dogged with problems throughout, but I hope to have some further good news early in the new year. A bathymetric survey in the harbour was conducted earlier this year. We had a large vessel, fishing vessel, 37-metre Jacoba Maria, who came into the harbour in October. On a low spring tide, she did ground very briefly, leaving the harbour, and by briefly I'm talking about for a minute or less. One of our vessels attended immediately, but there was no issue, and the vessel went on its way very quickly. We have had no other reports of vessels grounding in the harbour entrance. The Jacoba Maria has a considerably deeper draft than most vessels accessing the harbour, and of course we have had large tall ship vessels. We've had the paddle steamer Waverley coming in this year, and of course with no issues. I've literally only just received the latest survey results. The last dredge in that area was in March 2022. I'm going to be taking a look to see what, if any, dredging or other actions are needed, and we'll bring that forward to the next meeting. Moving on to the Harbour Revision Order. The Weymouth Harbour Revision Order was approved by Cabinet in November 24 and then submitted to the Marine Management Organisation. Consultation on this closed on the 31st of July this year with no objections or required actions. Ashford's, our legal services acting on behalf of Dorset Council, completed final drafting checks and returned the Harbour Revision Order to the MMO for laying. However, despite their earlier indications, the MMO then advised that the laying date for this Weymouth Harbour Revision Order would not be until 2027 at the earliest. This, of course, came as a bit of a surprise to us, and after further discussion, the MMO have now agreed to combine Weymouth's new Harbour Revision Order in with the Bridport and Lyme Regis Harbour Revision Order into one single amalgamated document. This combined order is scheduled for issue in January 2026, with the order expected to come into force in February, approximately 21 days after being laid. So yes, that does bring a slight continued delay to the Bridport and Lyme Regis Harbour Revision Order, but I hope members would agree that after 5 years of waiting for that one, we can hopefully wait one more month for the greater good to see it all pass through. Happy to take a question at this stage, Chair, if you'd like.
Mark, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wonder if you could add 26 after January, because it isn't clear which year the MMO were going to do it. I'm relieved that you said that verbally. That's it in the final couple of sentences of the third paragraph, where it's now scheduled for January. Could we put January 26? Because earlier it referred to 27, and it will just clarify the minutes.
Thank you. Yes, this is a consequence of reading from bullet points rather than the notes that I'd written originally. I shall possibly revert back to boring you all with a consistent reading of my notes from now on. But yes, thank you very much. I will make sure that, that you are right, Mark. Thank you. It is scheduled for January 2026. Yes, rather, yeah. So yeah, very early next year, we're hoping for that to all come into force. Thank you. As has already been mentioned today, the national compliance exercise for the Port and Marine Facility Safety Code begins in early 2026. Every UK port and harbour must formally report adherence to the Port, Marine and Facilities Safety Code to the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. This is part of a wider initiative to ensure consistent safety standards and to reinforce the responsibilities of duty holders under the code. As a statutory harbour authority, Weymouth must demonstrate compliance to regular audits, safety plan reviews and operational oversight. Our recent internal reviews and the designated persons reports confirm that all 3 Dorset harbours are operating in line with the code. In November, the British Ports Association circulated some template resources that have been developed with the UK Harbour Masters Association and the UK Maritime Ports Group. These include some draft bridging documents, tiered template letters for engaging with third-party marine facilities. These templates reflect updates to the Guide to Good Practice, especially section 6.8, which encourages memoranda of understanding between harbour authorities and adjacent facilities. We will adapt these templates locally to ensure smaller marine facilities within or near our jurisdiction understand their obligations and achieve compliance. The BPA has indicated these documents may be annexed to the guide in future, helping to create a consistent framework recognised by regulators. Moving on to the Dorset Harbours economic review. As you mentioned earlier, Chairman, we met with members in a workshop back in October to discuss this very matter. Members were very much of the opinion at the time that while an economic review is identified within the harbour strategy as something we should be doing, certainly with Weymouth, there is currently a large amount of shoreside development or very near harbourside development, North Quay, the Westway Road sites, Weymouth Bowl, the Weymouth Peninsula. A lot of these discussions for proposed developments are only just coming into the public eye, and members would like to have a greater understanding of what those developments will be and how the harbour will sit alongside those developments prior to commissioning a large and possibly expensive economic review. We are going to be pushing ahead with some sector analysis to get that commissioned, and I'm looking at getting some quotes for this, purely looking at how the UK ports industry in comparable ports and harbours is doing at the moment, and also how the 3 Dorset Council harbours are doing when compared to the industry as a whole. We have a workshop planned early in the new year to clarify development scope within Weymouth, and that will of course include senior officers and councillors that are responsible for economic growth and regeneration within the area. Moving on to harbour works. At Cousins Quay, some slight slumping areas were identified earlier in the year. We have actually had some works completed in the last couple of weeks in conjunction with our highways colleagues, where they took away in 2 areas the very top surface of the car park to investigate what was happening underneath. We're very pleased to report that what the engineers that we work with, the coastal risk engineers, thought was happening underneath is exactly what they thought was happening. And actually, in one area where the cobblestones on the loop, the tramway had become loose, this is because there is a concrete pad situated underneath that area with some looser, sandier material on top onto which the cobblestones had been laid. Some of that looser, sandy material had in fact been eroded over years, which had meant some of the cobbles had shifted, but the actual construction of the harbour wall underneath still in very good condition. And further back, where there was a parking space where we had seen a slumping in one particular area, this is actually back immediately behind where the old harbour wall is situated. And when highways dug a hole, they were very clearly to identify the old harbour wall still in place. And it was actually a small pocket of, again, softer, backfilled material in this area that had been washed away by rainwater. This has all been now repaired and refilled and recovered. So again, no concerns for larger voiding or anything else within that area. The stone pier railings, we are just awaiting one final quote to looking to refurbish the stone pier railings. We have received quotes on complete replacement and refurbishment. The refurbishment quote, which is a very good piece of work, which is going right through, replacing any rusty bits and pieces, and also repainting throughout, is coming in and much more cost effective than a complete replacement. But because of the potential cost of this, we're looking at getting 2 quotes in order to fulfill our procurement requirements. Very much hoping that we're going to be able to get that moving before the new year. The fuel pontoon, as I say, at the time of writing this report, I was very happy because I had some progress to report with the pontoon. We were very nearly there. Unfortunately, as I reported earlier, this latest incident with the fuel system has delayed completion, now at least until the new year. There has been, sorry, let me just flick back to another document here. So yes, Weymouth Peninsula development. Following recent Cabinet report on the Weymouth 2040 regeneration programme, I would just like to highlight to the Harbours Advisory Committee proposed development at the Weymouth Peninsula, which has direct implications for the harbour. Dorset Council is preparing to invite Hall & Woodhouse to submit a leasehold proposal for a mixed-use scheme. The site is currently underutilised and represents a rare opportunity for a regeneration adjacent to the beach and surrounded by water on 3 sides. As the peninsula is designated as harbour land, which does exclude the Pavilion Theatre area, any disposal must be in the best interest of the harbour, with all proceeds reinvested into it. The development must comply with the Weymouth Harbour Revision Order and will require review by this committee and the Weymouth Harbour Consultative Group before any recommendation is made to Cabinet. In addition to the development proposal, a major harbour wall replacement project is currently underway at the peninsula, which my colleague Matt Penny will no doubt update you on very shortly. The new sheet pile wall design has got a 70-year lifespan. Works began on site with site preparation in September, and with WSP appointed as the consulting engineers and Knights Brown as contractor. Happy to report we've had some very notable traffic coming through Weymouth over this summer. We welcomed the now Victoria, a 26-metre tall ship, for the second time of her second visit to Weymouth, and the 5th visit by a Spanish tall ship since 2023. Her stay coincided with Weymouth Pirate Week. The vessel again was open to the public and a very popular attraction. And we also welcomed the paddle steamer Waverley back into Weymouth. After an absence of nearly 7 years. Over 5 visits, over 2,900 passengers embarked and disembarked and enjoyed trips along the Jurassic coast. The Waverley docked alongside Commercial Berth 1, which proved an excellent and safe venue. And we very much look forward to welcoming her back next year. The Waverley did stop again briefly on the 13th of October to bunker and take on water prior to making her journey to Glasgow, where she's remaining for the winter. We also had an unexpected visit by the sail training vessel Pelican of London, 45 metres length overall. Originally built in 1948 as an Arctic trawler before being converted into a sail training vessel. She made an unscheduled stop at the end of Weymouth, which was at the end of September, a very welcome surprise, and I think a testament to the harbour's flexibility and readiness to accommodate a wide range of vessels. Hosting ships like the Pelican, even at short notice, adds a lot of character and interest to the waterfront and also reinforces our reputation as a capable and hospitable port. The Jacoba Maria, a modern UK flag beam trawler, again 36 metres, which we mentioned earlier, made several visits to Weymouth in early October. This vessel typically operates in the Northeast Atlantic. She'd spent several days in port unloading its catch. In recent years, vessels from the Atlantic have targeted species such as cod, herring, whiting, hake and pilchard and mullet in the English Channel. We believe at this time she was actually fishing for squid predominantly. But yeah, she came into Weymouth a few times, offloaded catch, and we may well see her again in future. No acts of pilotage have taken place during this reporting period. The only significant event to highlight, of course, is the Christmas Day swim. We're expecting, I think it was 480 people last Christmas, and speaking with the organisers, they're very much hoping for the maximum, which is 500 people, to be signing up this year, and they're already selling tickets for that one. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed, for that excellent report. I can see Richard has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Just thank you for the statement on compliance from the Port Marine Facilities and Safety Code. I think it's really important we get that operational statement in addition, or as opposed to the just the designated persons statement. I think it's just a whole important part of the jigsaw for our governance process. I just want to be clear in this.
Excuse me, Richard, could you just bring your mic closer?
Has it gone off? I just want to be clear in this exercise. It's in the Weymouth report, but I'm assuming it covers all 3 harbours.
Ed would like to come back.
Yes, thank you. So yes, when I'm talking here about the compliance exercise, yes, I am referring to all 3 harbours. We do have a recommendation a bit later on, which regarding the marine safety plan and things. I've actually got a statement which covers the 3 harbours directly to cover this exact example later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed. So there's no other questions. The committee notes the updates from the harbour masters, and we thank them very much for all those updates. I'd also just like to mention that Ed did mention to me that the oil spill was a case of just a couple of litres of oil, diesel, I should say, and not tens of litres or hundreds of litres. It was just a couple of litres from the fuel pontoon. So that's a lot better than it could have been. Moving on to item 10 is the update from the FCERM from Matthew Penny. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Chair. Matthew Penny, Service Manager for Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management at Dorset Council. Starting in Bridport Harbour, as mentioned by the Harbour Master, trial implementation of the new water injection dredging techniques are underway and are currently being monitored, but it is too early to draw any conclusions at this time. Inspections and repairs. The 2025 inspections are largely complete, and additional defects have been identified and repaired for a programme for repair over the next 5 years. Boat-based inspections for the difficult-to-access areas were completed in September, and any remaining programme repairs for this financial year have been scheduled with Dorset Council Highways and are expected to be completed by the end of March 2026. Harbour Wall A and B works. Due to the procurement and licensing requirements for further construction works to both walls are scheduled to commence in spring 2026, with the main work scheduled for autumn 2026. Both phases of work are subject to licensing approvals from the Marine Management Organisation and other statutory bodies. Project team members are keeping kiosk owners updated and are working closely with harbour staff. Moving on to Lyme Regis Harbour. As has been mentioned, Bridport Harbour, we're still awaiting, still too early to conclude anything regarding the water injection dredging. For inspections and repairs, likewise, the 2025 inspections are largely complete and additional defects have been identified and programmed for repair. They'll be carried out over the next 5 years. Boat-based inspections were completed in September alongside Bridport works, and any remaining programme repairs for this financial year will be complete by the end of March 2026 by our highways colleagues. Item C, the cob repairs. A large void at the toe of the seaward wall has been identified. This significant defect is located within a hard-to-reach section and is deemed to need repair before the proposed Lyme Regis Environmental Improvement Scheme Phase 5 commences construction. Designs and consents for a permanent solution were completed and a repair attempted week commencing the 3rd of November this year. Due to adverse weather conditions, the permanent repair involved concrete fill, but had to be postponed until the next suitable tide and weather window in the new year. A temporary repair and preventative repair was successfully completed in November. This involved placing 11 one-ton rock bags to partially fill the void and create a protective barrier at the toe of the structure. The bags were craned into position and have been securely lashed together. They're designed to absorb wave energy, helping to mitigate the impact of winter storms. We'll continue to monitor the site closely, but are optimistic that the temporary measures will provide sufficient protection against further damage over the coming months. Lyme Regis Environmental Improvement Scheme Phase 5. The project team has recently received further pre-application advice from Historic England on the proposed outline design. Discussions with Historic England are ongoing to gain greater clarity on the types of interventions they're likely to support. Their endorsement is essential in not only to securing planning consent, but also for improving the chances of attracting additional external funding. While a funding shortfall remains, we're optimistic that the scheme may become eligible for increased support following the release of the new DEFRA policy for flood and coastal erosion funding. We expect further clarity when the Environment Agency publishes its updated appraisal guidelines scheduled for November 30th this year. Once funding allocations are confirmed, the project team will assess the implications and provide a further update. A public engagement session was scheduled for the 27th November this year, where residents and stakeholders had the opportunity to view the current outline design and share their feedback. A verbal update I have is that the public engagement event was a success. Over 200 people attended, and it was a largely positive response. I'd like to thank Nick Mark, Sally Holman, Dorset Coast Forum, and the community for the volume of feedback we received as part of that event. Subject to funding and necessary consents, the earliest the construction is currently anticipated to begin is summer 2027. Moving on to Weymouth Harbour, nothing to note for the dredging. Inspections and repairs. The 2025 inspections are, again, largely complete. I think they are completed now in Weymouth, and additional defects have been identified and programmed for repair over the next 5 years. Boat-based inspections for difficult access areas will be carried out in the next available weather window. Again, I think that has happened. Unfortunately, these inspections were postponed earlier in the year due to resource constraints. Any remaining programme repairs for this financial year, again, will be carried out by the end of this financial year through our Dorset Highways colleagues. For Weymouth Flood and Coastal Erosions Management Scheme Phase 1, the aforementioned DEFRA policy around flood and coastal erosion funding, which outlines the approach to funding rules which will be implemented from April 2026. That guidance has recently been released, and we're effectively digesting it with webinars planned with our Environment Agency colleagues. The Environment Agency is currently developing the update, and as I said, we are awaiting webinars over the next couple of weeks to understand more. Under these new rules, as such, because new rules have been released, the delivery of the outline business case will be delayed, as will be required to comply with the new funding guidelines in order to be eligible for flood defence granting aid, which is fundamental to the delivery of the scheme. Technical works on the OBC are still being progressed, while the arrival of the new appraisal guidance is being awaited. Surface water investigation is being progressed in collaboration with the relevant risk management authorities and may also be influenced by the new funding guidelines. Harbour walls F&G, which are those on the peninsula. The Marine Management Organisation advised us in August 2025 that they required a seagrass survey before they would issue the licence. The seagrass survey was completed on the 15th of August this year, and the survey results report was presented to Natural England for approval prior to being lodged with the MMO on the 11th of September. The MMO licence was issued on the 14th of October, and we're dealing with the pre-commencement conditions which have been submitted back to the MMO for review. Planning approval has been secured, the Crown Estates licence is in place, the contractor has established on site and concluded preparatory work for the sheep pile installation, both terrestrial and marine-based. Sheep piling will commence as soon as we have discharged the marine licence pre-commencing conditions, and project completion is forecast for August this year. A verbal update I've got is that yesterday afternoon we have received the return decision on the outstanding discharge conditions from the MMO, and this means we can now commence with the licensed marine works, which is good news. And that...
Thank you very much, Matthew, for that report. Excellent, by the way, that's great news. Mark, you have a question?
Yes, just a technical one, Matt, if I may. When the sheet piling, the new sheet piling is finally put in, we know it's about a metre out from the existing. Is the existing sheet piling removed or buried? And will its further corrosion affect the stability of the infill?
No, the existing sheet piling isn't removed. It's cut off where it's protruding too high above the surface, but it effectively is buried by the backfill behind the new sheet piles. It won't destabilise as it corrodes the ground around it. We have identified voids that were there, and we have filled those voids already. So therefore, there shouldn't be any more destabilisation to the surface behind the sheet piles. No problem.
Thank you, Matthew. I'd like to apologise that I couldn't make the meeting in Lyme Regis last week due to being full of cold, and I didn't want to share my germs with anybody. So apologies that I wasn't there, but I had intended to be. And if there's no other questions from anybody on the committee, then we note the FCERM updates, and thank you very much for that. Moving on to item 11, Budget Monitoring Report 25/26. James Radcliffe presenting first. Thank you. Sorry, Jack. Claire Connolly is going to present that. Sorry, my apologies, Claire.
Morning, everyone. So the purpose of the report is to present the current budget position for 25/26. Generally, things remain relatively unchanged since the last reporting period. The detail is in the report, but to summarise, there are some factors that affect all three budgets for the Harbours. The service recharges were recalculated after the original budgets were set. This created additional pressures for Bridport and Lyme, but was a saving for Weymouth. The agreed pay award was higher than originally budgeted for. This has increased costs across all three. At Bridport, however, this impact was partly offset by the vacant mechanics post. At Lyme Regis, the costs for staffing has rose further due to some job evaluation regrading. Bridport and Lyme, but seasonal staff costs have been reviewed just to ensure that the correct number of hours are recorded against each harbour. And for Weymouth staffing, there have been some additional costs incurred covering long-term sickness during the peak season. The current financial position is that Bridport's surplus is reducing from 80,000 to 62,000. This is because some projects will now be funded from revenue rather than reserves. So this nets off the reduction in surplus by increasing the expected year-end reserve balance. Other variances for Bridport include reduced dredging costs. There's a shortfall in income related to the vacant mechanics post, and there are expected increases in parking income. For Lyme Regis, the expectation to now return a balanced budget does mean that emerging cost pressures like the service recharges need to be addressed through cost savings or increased income, which is a challenge. For this year, those unexpected costs will be funded by reducing dredging costs. There is positive news for Lyme. There will be an expected surplus of about £4,000 this year. Weymouth surplus will increase by about 500,000. This has been previously reported and explained because it's due to the delayed wall repair works. Although numbers for visiting vessels and marina berths is down, as Ed reported, we set our budgets using averages and looking at trends, and this means that although the numbers are down, we're expecting income from both visiting overnight stays and marina berthing to be on track. Income from 6 monthly lets has improved, as Ed also explained, and we have some new commercial area revenue. The other change for this reporting period is that Seafest is going to return to the quayside. it's been agreed that the harbour will contribute to the event in recognition of the value it brings to the harbour and the town. Surpluses for all the harbours are transferred into reserves. Weymouth and Bridport reserves are well established, being used to fund essential maintenance and improvement projects. Any decisions on how to use the funds and allocate any additional surpluses will be made at the year end. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report, Claire. Does anybody have any questions before we note the report? Okay. We duly note it. Thank you very much. And item 12 on the agenda is the harbour budget and setting fees and charges for 26-27. And Claire Connolly is going to be presenting this. Thank you very much, Claire, once again.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is to set out the budget and the predicted balance of reserves for 26-27 and includes setting of fees and charges for the three harbours. With regards to the fees and charges, the harbours have undertaken a benchmarking exercise. We've also taken into account how our facilities compare to other harbours, particularly those that we benchmarked against, whether any price increases reflects the service provision on offer. We've looked at our historic price increases against the various different revenue streams and taken into account Dorset Council's minimum expectation. The expectation is a minimum of 3.4%, and in general, our recommendation is to adopt that. However, there are a few exceptions. For Bridport and Lyme, we are proposing there are no increase for winter moorings, boat lifting, quayside parking or commercial fishing fees. This is due to a combination of wanting to make rates more attractive, and in some areas it's considered fees are already considered high. Annual and summer vessel storage fees are proposed to increase by £30 per metre, and with that will come some added benefits to customers. The launch and recovery service operated by the harbour staff will increase by 20%. This is to align with other harbours, and just to confirm, this doesn't relate to slipway charges. For Weymouth, visiting vessel fees remain unchanged. This is due to significant price increases in recent years, and we think that our price is slightly above average, especially when comparing the type of berth that's offered and the perceived value for money. Fishermen's storage at the commercial area, this is going to increase from £2.15 to £5 per pallet per month. This is because our benchmarking exercise shows that not many other harbours offer this, and those that do typically charge considerably more. The proposed charges aim to keep costs fair and proportionate while accurately reflecting the services and facilities provided. I can take questions now about that and then move on to the forecast. I don't know if you'd like to do that.
Thank you very much, Claire. Does anybody have any questions at this stage? Then we duly note the report. Thank you very much. Moving on to, oh, sorry, Claire, I missed something. Apologies.
No, that's fine. I just paused. The next part of the report is the budget forecast. So the budget forecast for 26-27. So the Dorset Council's Harbour Strategy sets out a 5-year plan to guide investment and ensure harbours remain safe, compliant and financially sustainable. The report contains some detailed information, and a financial breakdown for each harbour is on the appendices. To summarise, the budgets assume relatively stable occupancy rates, approval of the proposed fees detailed in this report, 3.2% pay award and some inflationary increases. We've also reviewed our shared services costs. This has resulted in savings across the board, although some of those figures are still subject to final approval. Looking ahead, the Bridport forecast surplus is 90,000. This marks an improvement on last year's position. This is largely attributed to some increased parking income, but also the recent successes that James and the team have achieved, boosting income and implementing operational efficiencies. These continue to play a key role year on year, strengthening the Harbour's financial position. Lyme Regis is moving towards cost neutrality, which has been achieved again for 26-27. However, rising staff costs and limited space for income does continue to make this challenging. Weymouth has a forecast surplus of £603,000. There's new income streams at the commercial area with the opening of the ice and catch store. There's been increased visits from commercial vessels such as the Waverley. We're hoping that they will be returning again, and this will bring in continued new income. Parking is expected to decrease due to the delayed start of the works on walls F and G. The anticipated shortfall now shifts from the current financial year to the 26-27 financial year. Income and costs associated with selling fuel are yet to be included in the budget. These will be reported throughout the year as part of the budget monitoring process. Reserve balances are shown in the appendices. The reserves are, critical for the Harbour's long-term investment. Any of our year-end surpluses are transferred into reserves and are fully committed to projects outlined in the business plan. There's a table in the report showing the next 3 years' planned commitments. The Bridport reserves have an opening balance of just under 258,000, looking to rise to 348,000 after the projected surplus. Lyme Regis has a small reserve of 3,900, currently with no surplus forecast, but this is an improvement as there's been a historic budget deficit. So to break even is, again, in thanks to James and the team. For Weymouth, the in-year spend from reserves is high for 26-27 as we work towards progressing a number of pontoon replacements. The year-end forecast of reserve is 1.46 million. This is split between development and maintenance to ensure funds are available for major works, and there is a fund for emergencies. There are specific allocations to separate reserves, which include future repairs to the pleasure pier and maintenance dredging. The plan is to review these to confirm that the future contributions are still appropriate. We have a capital receipts reserve. This is generated from asset sales, can only be used for capital projects such as new assets or improvements. And the final reserve is a contribution of 1.48 million. This is for repairs to the harbour walls, which was approved by Cabinet in 24. This is being funded by Weymouth Harbour budgets over 3 years, and the final transfer will be made in 26-27. So overall, the harbours remain in a stable financial position, with surpluses at Bridport and Weymouth and Lyme expected to break even. Reserves are being managed responsibly to fund essential projects and support future resilience, demonstrating that our strategy is delivering investment, maintaining reserves and securing long-term viability for the harbours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Sorry, I was finding it, still recovering from my last week's cold, and I was finding it hard to hear at times. I think it's just my ears are still blocked, so apologies for that.
So do we move to the recommendation?
What's that? Yeah, so the recommendation is, and I saw, first of all, that Ray had his hand up. If you'd like to say something, Ray.
Yes, good morning, Councillor Ray Bryan, who represents the East Ward of St Leonards and St Ives. I've been involved with the Harbour Committee for a long time now, and I've got to say the performance from them is absolutely superb, as always. Having read an article in the paper today where they obviously had the paper sent to them, correctly so, I think it's worthwhile pointing out that the increases are within the inflation figures that we're currently experiencing, and also it's good management to make sure that you've got some projected issues coming up, which we know will happen. Harbour walls, things like that, are always going to cost us a lot of money, and I think it's very prudent that we keep the reserves at a sensible level to ensure that these works can be carried out at the right time without having to dig in to Dorset Council's funds. I do have a concern on the projected numbers for next year, in as much as we are going to lose a lot of car park revenue whilst the works are going on. So I would ask the man sitting behind me, Matt Piles, to make sure that we keep the work in a controlled area and occupy as few spaces as possible to enable the revenue to actually be slightly better than we're looking at. It's fairly pessimistic, but it's right to be that way. I'm not arguing with that. But I do think we need to take every step we can as a council to try and alleviate any costs that we don't need to incur. So I'm asking whether we can make sure that the car park spaces that are utilised by the builders are kept to a minimum, obviously in line with health and safety. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ray. Ed, have you anything to... sorry, I see Mark's got his hand up as well. But Ed first.
Thank you, Councillor Bryan, for your words of support there. Yeah, greatly appreciated. Only for me to say that, of course, you know, the Harbours team, we were working very closely with the Flood and Coastal Erosional Management team and everyone involved with the works to Walls F and G. And yes, of course, it's everyone's intention that these works go ahead with the least disruption possible. So yeah, we're all working very closely on that in tandem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed. And Mark Roberts, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, partly to echo Councillor Bryan's view on the success, the financial success, this was always part of the strategy for the Harbours, that they were financially self-sufficient. But I particularly want to point out that we've been waiting very many years for Lyme Regis to actually get to that point. So congratulations on that. And my hope is that the revised or the water dispersible dredging at much reduced costs will be a success and enable Lyme Regis to continue to be more than self-sufficient and actually build a balance for the works that will undoubtedly arise around the harbour there. Thank you.
Are there any further Lee, sorry, I can see you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Forgive me for a fairly convoluted chain of thought, if I may. I wanted to try and link I've been thinking about linking the financial reports we've had with the safety bits we do as well, which are key, and we've got some other safety reports coming on later in the meeting. But I think when we had the report from our DP earlier, I questioned about how often he managed to get on the ground. And I think the response was, and I may have this wrong, but please correct me, that there was no contractual provision for that to happen. My question in my mind, is that a good thing? Should we be looking to perhaps make provision for the DP to get on the ground, and I don't know, once a year, whatever it happens to be, in the ports, in the harbours, I'm sorry. And given that the reports we've just been having and linking all that to safety, and that we are going to take the DP contract, which is in train at the moment, and bring it back to this committee if it needs to change, is there an opportunity to do that? I'm not asking for an answer today. A lot of people need to think about that and try and tie it together. But could I ask that actually our officials and the DP as well have a look at that and see if it's viable? Is it required? It may not be required, but as a best practice for ourselves.
Thank you very much, Lee. I'll come over to Ed now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I'm more than happy to look at this. As Mr. Hannan said earlier, we do catch up more regularly than is already within the contract, which something that James and I are very happy to do across the three harbours. I think it's very useful. Yeah, I think any engagement with the designated person is good for the harbours. So yeah, I'm more than happy to explore that. I think it would be fair to say that of course there would be a cost involved in this, of course. But yeah, we can discuss that and see where we get to. I know James does a lot of travelling around the southwest, working with other ports as well. So I'm sure it would be possible to fit it into the schedules. But yeah, thank you. Sorry, yes, it is just worth highlighting, of course, that the audit is actually in person as well. So James does physically, come and visit the harbour physically, each one. But yes, for each harbour, that's only once in 3 years. So yes, I'm sure we could benefit from more. We'll have a discussion and come back with some further information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, James. Anything else before we? The committee recommend to approve the fees and charges for 2006-07 and pass this on to Cabinet. And sorry, I've skipped on a page. Approve the forecasted budget for Bridport Line, Regis, Weymouth Harbour for 26-27. Thank you very much.
Happy to propose.
Do we have a seconder? Ray.
Yeah, very happy to second based on the information we've been given today.
Thank you. All those in favour? Yeah.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you. Do that down. Moving on to item 13, which is the Dorset Council Harbours Marine Safety Plan Review, and Ed is going to present. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Firstly, if I could, there was a supplementary paper sent round to members yesterday. We did actually make a change to the wording of one of the recommendations subsequent to these papers being published. The change was only minor, but in order to make sure everyone's got the correct information, hopefully everybody has the supplement paper in front of them rather than the original one. Now, the Dorset Council Harbours Marine Safety Plan Review. So we've conducted a scheduled review of our marine safety plan for Bridport, West Bay, Lyme Regis and Weymouth Harbours, ensuring continued compliance with the Port and Marine Facilities Safety Code and in alignment with best practice. The updated plan strengthens governance, clarifies responsibilities and sets out clear objectives for safe and effective and environmentally responsible harbour operations. Just for some clarification regarding the second part of the recommendation today, with the review and update of the Dorset Council Harbours Safety Plan now complete, and following the audit at Lyme Regis earlier this year, we've undertaken a compliance check against the latest requirements of the PMSC. Our assessment confirms that Dorset Council's 3 statutory harbours of Bridport, Lyme Regis and Weymouth are broadly compliant with the Port Marine Safety Code. Where minor updates have been required to reflect recent revisions to the code, these actions are either already completed or in hand. In addition, Trinity House inspections of navigational aids have been consistently positive, and quarterly reporting of incidents, accidents and training records demonstrates high standards of safety performance and continuous improvement. It is important to note that the following recommendation at point 2.12 of this report is not intended to replace the designated person's statutory role in reporting compliance to the duty holder. The designated person's independent assurance remains a critical part of the governance process. As the Harbours Advisory Committee plays a central role in the governance of Dorset Council's harbours, it is appropriate that the committee confirms its agreement with the designated person's position on compliance. This reinforces its advisory responsibility to the duty holder and demonstrates transparent, accountable governance in line with the principles of the Code. Ahead of the scheduled 3-yearly MCA compliance exercise in early 2026, and following the request from members at the recent workshop that they wish to record their own agreement with the designated person that the harbours are compliant with the code, it is considered appropriate to minute this statement at this time. Finally, it is essential to recognise that compliance with the Port Marine Safety Code is not a single moment in time, but rather a continued process of learning, development and adaptation. Maintaining compliance requires ongoing monitoring of operational practices and governance arrangements, regular review of incident and accident data to identify trends and implement improvements, continuous training and competency development for harbour staff, engagement with stakeholders and regulators to ensure alignment with evolving best practice and legislative requirements. This dynamic approach ensures that Dorset Council's harbours remain safe, resilient and responsive to emerging risks and opportunities. We remain committed to maintaining full compliance and will continue to monitor and report progress through the established government processes. The recommendations in front of the committee today: number 1, that the Harbours Advisory Committee recommend that the Cabinet Member for Place Services approve the Dorset Council Harbours Marine Safety Plan 2026-2029 be adopted. And secondly, that the Harbours Advisory Committee, in conjunction with the designated person, hereby formally notify the duty holder that the 3 Dorset Council harbours are fully compliant with the Port and Marine Facilities Safety Code. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Yes, Richard, you have a question, please.
A couple of things. I'd just like to note initially that the Marine Safety Plan has now gone through its first cycle. We've had one for 3 years, and it's a really key vehicle for this committee to keep in sight to support the duty holder in sort of driving improvement and maintaining the standards across the harbours. I welcome the review. I think it's taken the original plan and, as Ed has said, added some clarity to certain areas. But particularly, I think in the actions, it's now more aligned with the code itself. So there's more clarity in actions. But I do welcome the piece on resilience in there. I think that's a key element for us in terms of our overall risk management going forward. We've mentioned harbour walls and things. And so that resilience piece, I think, is a key to recognise that. So not really a question. I just want to just be clear, on the importance of the plan and recognise where we are in the cycle. It's slightly separate from the compliance issue. It's part of the duty holders and our sort of compliance with the code. So I welcome the review, and I think it's put us in good stead for the next piece. And I have one more, unless there's any responses to that. In terms of the compliance statement, I think we've heard today from both the designated person and from the operational team in terms of their reviews of compliance. And I think I'd note we've had the opportunity over the last 3 years to review quarterly performance. So we're getting regular feedback and very comprehensive feedback from the operations team, sort of on a quarterly basis. So it gives us a lot of confidence, I think, in terms of the performance of the harbours. So again, I think that statement of Ed's just clarifying the elements of that. The audits are important. Clearly, they dive into the safety management system and they look how up to date it is. But it's all the other elements that we see quarterly that also build on that evidence that allows us to make that advice going forward.
Thank you very much, Richard, for those comments. Is there anybody else? Mark, I can see you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, just a quick 2 points. The first one, when you introduced it, Ed, you said that we are broadly compliant, but the reviews all say fully compliant. I'm not quite sure. I hope we're fully, because broadly is not quite as definitive. The other point is in Dorset Council's safety plan under the RACI or RACI list of duties and accountabilities. I think at our workshop we went through these, and under number 2, conservancy, the issue timely notices to mariners we have that the person who should sign off and is accountable is the duty holder, but I believe under discussion at the informal meeting, we thought that it should be the Harbours manager. And I would ask that we probably change the wording on that.
Yes, Ed, you'd like to come in? Thank you.
Sorry, excuse me. Yes, on that second point, first of all, Mr. Roberts spoke to me in the before the meeting. I've actually made that change already in the draft copy. That was a typo there. So that will of course be updated as the person responsible for local notice to mariners, of course, being the harbour masters. Thank you. With broadly, fully, I think it's we are compliant, of course. My earlier statement really, I think, saying that compliance with the Port Marine Safety Code is not just a single moment in time, but an ongoing process. We are broadly compliant with the code. We are adhering to things absolutely. That's not to say that we can't improve, we can't make things better as we go forward. But yeah, I'm happy to say, and I think it's supported here. I think James is.
Yes, James, you'd like to come in and say something?
Yeah, just to touch on terminology used in the whole compliance. The new code, or the rewritten code, actually states that all organisations are to meet proportional compliance with the code. There is a key change or fundamental change within the code at this point, where it is deemed that there are certain elements of the code that you are not going to be able to reach. One of those is being vessel traffic services, for example. None of your ports have vessel traffic services. So to measure compliance against vessel traffic service requirement would be a nonsense. So the code now states that it is proportional to the operations that you undertake. So the actual terminology to be used is you are proportionally compliant with the elements of the code that apply to you. Thank you.
Thank you, James, for clarifying that. Does anybody else have a question? If not, recommendation. Yeah, to the Harbours Advisory Committee is agreement with the designated person, notify the duty holder. 3 Dorset Council Harbours are complying with the port and to accept Port and Marine Facilities Safety Code. The Harbours Advisory Committee recommend that the Cabinet Member for Place Services approves the adoption of the Dorset Council Harbours Marine Safety Plan 26-29. Thank you.
The second one read out was the first.
Yeah, I read them in the wrong order there. But, my screen is completely different for some reason.
Mark's proposing.
Yes, Mark, you got a question? Can we take a vote on? And Councillor Sarah Williams seconds that. All in favour?
Unanimous.
Thank you very much. Unanimous. Sorry, I've just been informed that John Andrews had his hand up on the screen. I couldn't see that from where in front of me. Are you there, John? Would you like to come in this time?
Yes, I am, Rob. Sorry I can't be with you today, but I'm struggling. Yeah, happy with all those reports, especially the Marine Safety Code. Brilliant job by everybody to get all that all together. So I'm really happy to approve it and recognise it and note it and whatever I've got to do. Really, really good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. I'm sorry that you're suffering so badly. I feel the same. Last week I was just the same way. And I'm still having problems with my hearing today, it seems. Thank you. Moving forward to item 14, forward plan. And this again is to be presented by Ed Carter.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Very quickly, nothing really new here. As we all know, a large amount of the updates, project updates, are also contained within the standing items of this meeting. The only additional one that I hope to bring an update for the next meeting would be progress on the economic analysis following the workshop that we've got scheduled, I believe, at the end of January or early February. But otherwise, all the usual project updates, bits and pieces will be within the standing items. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed. Any questions for Ed on the forward plan? If not, we will note this and move on to item 15, which is urgent items. I've not been made aware of any urgent items today, and there is no exempt business. So therefore, at 11:53, I believe we can close the meeting and say thank you to everybody. Thank you very much.